Hello everyone, welcome back. In this video, we are going to explore the Owl Carousel 2. It is one of the most popular jQuery plugins that has ever made. It is actually a slider plugin and it got a dependency on jQuery. So in this video, we are going to see how we can use the Owl Carousel 2 and some of its important options and modifications. So without any further ado, let's get started. At first, we need to download the Owl Carousel 2. You can go to the GitHub and clone it, or you can just click this download or this download. It is going to be downloaded as a zip file. So let's go to the desktop here and create a folder. So inside this folder, I'm just going to open a new file for the HTML. We need lots of CSS files and JavaScript files. That's why I'm just going to create folder for those two, JavaScript and also a folder for CSS. And inside the CSS, I have opened the zip file which I have downloaded from the Owl Carousel. So at first we are going to import the CSS from here. The mandatory CSS file is this one, owlcarousel.css, or we can get the minified version. I'm just going to import the minified version because we are not going to do any modifications in here, so we can get the minified version. And this one is mandatory, it is compulsory, but there is other thing which is the default theme. So if you want to customize everything, like if you want to style all of the things in Owl Carousel, you can ignore this, but I prefer using it. It will have some default stylings to the Owl Carousel. So again, I'm just going to get the unminified on owl.theme.default.css. Okay, the CSS is done. Let's go to the JavaScript, and we need two things. The first thing we need is owlcarousel.js, and again I'm just going to import the minified version. We also need the jQuery, but I'm just going to use an CDN from jQuery. We also need some photos to demonstrate the slider, so I'm just going to paste it here. This image folder got some of the images. Now let's open this entire folder by the Visual Studio Code, which is my favorite code editor. Now let's zoom in a little bit to make the text bigger. And at first, I'm just going to put an boilerplate, exclamatory sign, then tab or enter. It will be like that. Now we need to add the links. Let's just add the CSS link first. So we got a CSS folder, and inside that folder, we got two things. At first, we need to add the minified.css, then let's just copy and add the theme option, and we also can create a new file, style.css. We are going to add some of our stylings, CSS, and it will be inside the CSS folder. Okay, now let's add the JavaScript here, JS and Owl Carousel minified.js, but before that, as a dependency, we need to add the jQuery. Let's search for JQuery CDN, and again we need the minified version. Let's just copy this and paste it above the Owl Carousel. Okay, we can put our script or JavaScript code in here. We actually don't need to create another JavaScript file for that because it is going to be very simple. Okay, now I'm just going to open it by the live server and we are fine to go. Now let's create the markup, a simple markup here. Let's create a container. I'm just going to use it to have some gap at the left and right. Inside this container, let's create a div with the class of Owl Carousel. Okay, the class should have this name, otherwise it will not work. And after that, let's create a div. Actually, we don't need any things here. We can directly import the images. So let's just do that. Image on, and I'm just going to create 4 of the copies. 2, 3, 4. Let's save, and here we go. Okay, where it is. Okay, we need to initiate the slider. So in order to initiate it, we at first need to use the document ready function. It is, although it is not compulsory, but it is better to use it. Document dot ready function. Okay, and inside this, again the dollar sign, which is the jQuery sign, and we need to target this class of Owl Carousel, which is the containing class of the images or the slider items. Dot okay, I think it should work. Let's save and see, and it is working. Now let's go to the style.css, and I'm just going to add some gap at left or right. So in here, let's make the margin 0, padding also 0, box sizing let's ignore that, and for the container, let's make the max size to 1320 pixels, margin 0 auto, it will make the center. Also let's add some padding at top to bottom. Let's add 5 rem, and at left or right maybe 0.5 rem. And also let's target the image, they are too big. Actually let's ignore that. Okay, we don't need any stylings. Okay, we actually need something. Maybe let's target the image and make the height of 100% and height auto. I don't think that will make any difference, but again it's better to be safe. Now this is a basic slider. We don't have any options here. Now we are going to explore the options. So if you go to the Owl Carousel, so this is the page you will get whenever you search for Owl Carousel. There are multiple options. This is the home page, and we got the demos, documentations. So let's go to the demos here. And in here you can see 3 different categories of demo. The basic demos, where you can see the basic, responsive, center, merge, and some other steps. By using built-in plugins, they are already included in Owl Carousel, so we don't need to add anything else. We can directly go there and see the documentation and implement the code. But we can also use the external libraries. It is actually some external different jQuery plugins, so we are going to explore that as well. Now if you want to see anything, you can just go there. Let's just open the basic here. You can see the demo, and also you can see the codes. So this is the basic one. You can see the setup and HTML and other stuffs. But I forgot to tell you one thing, that if you just add the Owl theme, the default theme here, it will not work. So you will also need to add a class with the container div in here. So the class name is owl-theme. Now let's save and see this. It will be changed. So we now got the dots here, and all the images are aligned properly. Now let's go to another this in docs here. So in here they got very comprehensive documentation. So the new features, compatibility, and every other things, you can get that. So for installation, we already installed that. We already added the carousel minified CSS, theme default, and other stuffs. So now we don't need to do go get into the FAQ, but inside the API you can get all the options that is available. So there are lots of options here. So if you want to get learn more about the Owl Carousel, you can go through all the options and see what they do. So I'm just going to explain and demonstrate some of the mostly used options. We actually don't need to go through all the options because that will take so much time. Now, in order to put the options or add the options, we need to add curly braces because it is kind of an object. So let's start. At first, whenever we don't have any nav here or the arrow, so let's start with that. So if you search in the the options, let's search for maybe nav. You can see that the type is boolean and by default it is false, so that's why it is invisible. If you want to display it, you need to make this true, so it will show the next or previous button. And nav text, it is an array, so you can either add text or even the HTML is allowed. So in order to make this visible, we need to target the nav and make it true. Let's save. Now we got this tiny arrow here. So this is the default arrow, but if you want to change it, you can do that. So as it says, it is an array and it will be nav text. So array, I think the first one is for the previous, so prev, and the second one is for the next. Let's save, and now we got the text here. You can also include other icons like font or some icons in here. So I'm just going to demonstrate this practically. So I got an CDN link of font awesome. I'm just going to copy it and paste it here. So now we can include the font awesome icons directly in here. So let's do that. With the class of, we cannot use the double braces, so double quotation, so I'm just going to use the single quotation in here. Okay, for the previous one we need a chevron to the left, right? So fa is solid and fa dash chevron dash left. Let's save, and now we got a chevron. I'm just going to copy this and paste it here. It will be for the right. Let's save, and now we got the font of some icons. If you want to style it, you can just inspect this and get the class name from here. So it got the class name of Owl next and Owl previous, and all of these are wrapped with a div with the class of Owl nav. You can grab the class name and do your stylings. So we can now navigate it because the nav options are true in the options in here. Okay, now let's explore some other options. So whenever we click this, it is going to be slided by on items. So let's suppose we want it to slide by 2 items. We can also do that, but for that, let's increase the numbers a little bit. So I'm just going to copy this. I'm just confused how much image do we have. We actually got 5 images, so we can add another one. Okay, now we got 5 images. Now we can demonstrate this. So for that, let's go to the options here, and it will be slide by, and by default the value is on, so whenever we click the arrow it is going to be slided by on items. But if you want to make it 2, you can also do that. Let's save. Now whenever we click this, it is going to be slided by 2 items. Actually it is going to be selected by on items because there is 2 less items. So let's add another option in here, which will be items. Let's make it 2 items. Let's save. Now we got 2 items. Now it is going to be selected by 2 items. See? Okay. We are going to talk about the items more later, but as you can see, there is no gap or margins in between the items. So you can also do that by using the options in here, although you can also use the style.css for that. But let's try this margin, and it will have a pixel value. So let's make it 10. We don't need to type something like px or rem. We don't need any unit here. Now it got this nice gap between these slides. Now it is not going to be autoplayed, so we need to click or grab it like this. So it is by default the Owl Carousel is task enabled. So if you want to, okay, let's save, and okay, task drag by default it is true. So if you want to make it disabled for task sensitive devices, you can make it false, but there is no need to do that. Okay, so where am I now? Let's enable the autoplay, so it is going to be played automatically. We can also modify the duration or the gap. So in order to make it autoplay, let's make it true. Let's save. Now it should be autoplayed. Okay, now it is working. So you can also modify the duration, or let's say autoplay timeout, autoplay hover pause. So whenever we hover on an item, the autoplay will be paused. You can also get the speed and every other things. Now let's talk about the animations. Okay, so to demonstrate the animations, I think it's best to use a single item. Items, let's make it on. So we got only on image here. Now we can see the animations properly. In order to add the animation, there are 2 types of animation, which will be in animation whenever the slide appear first, and the second one is the animate out, which will be displayed when the slide will go out. So let's add animate in first. So I like this fade in animation. We can also use the animate out here, and to animate out, let's use fade out. Let's save, and now let's show it, and now it got this nice fading effect. So the next image is going to be something like it is fading in. Now there is an issue, there is an option here. So whenever we go to the last slide, it is going to be stuck. So if you want to make it this loop infinite, you can also do that. For that, we just need to use the loop option and make it true. By default it is false. Now it will be infinite. So whenever it got to the last, it is going to be again get to the first and slide all over again. Now after the loop, now let's talk about the responsiveness. So I'm just going to remove the items. Now we got 3 items. Let's inspect and see the devices. So for a smaller display like this one, I don't want to display 3 items, it is going to look ugly. That's why for this display size, let's make it display only on item here. So to enable the responsive options, it is kind of object. So responsiveness, sorry, only responsive, and we need to add the breakpoints from below to top. So after 0 pixels, let's make the items on. Let's save. Okay, there is an stupid spelling mistake here. It will be responsive. Now let's save and see. It is not working. There is only on items in here, but for smaller size display like mobile or tablet, people doesn't click these smaller icons. They just slide in like by using the touch sensitivity. And Owl Carousel is already touch sensitive and it works with the drag option. So we can remove this arrow or the nav. So what we can do, we can also do the nav and false. Let's save. Now it should be gone. Now it is gone. So after this, maybe this breakpoint, we want to display two items. So let's add another breakpoint in here. 425 pixels, sorry, we don't need the pixels, and items, let's make it 2. Now the nav is back because we got the nav true in here. So if we don't specify it in the responsive options, it is going to be true. Now we got the two options. Now let's say whenever we exceed the breakpoint of 768 pixels, we want to display 3 items. You can also do that. So let's add another breakpoint here, 768 pixels, and items maybe 3. Now it got 3 items. So this is it, and I think this will be enough for to implement the Owl Carousel in your web project, but there is on other things I want to demonstrate, which is this using external libraries. So if you just go to the documentation here, you can see that to add the mouse wheel scrolling, we need to include the plugin, which is jQuery.mousewheel.js. So let's open the GitHub page here, and here we go. So you can just download it or you can clone it, whatever you want. Also we got the npm options, but I have already downloaded in here. So in order to include it, we need the jQuery.mousewheel.js, or we can either export the minified version. So let's export the minified version in here, JavaScript, and this one. Okay, now we need to import this or link this with the script.js. JS and jQuery mousewheel.js. Now we need to add this. So at first, what I'm going to do is inside this document ready function, let's target this Owl Carousel class dot and on. We need to add the event. So in this case, the event is the mouse wheel. So let's add that mouse wheel, and the second one, we actually need to add a class in here. So let's add the class of owl dash stage. Okay. Now we need to target owl stage, but it got a dot here because it is a class. After that, let's add the function and add an event parameter in here. So if it actually, I'm just going to copy this. So this is the thing we are going to do, but in this case they are just pull this target or this oil carousel class into an variable named oil and put it here. You can directly put it by without using any variable. So let's put an if else condition here. E, which is the event dot delta, I think it is I, is more than 0, then let's target this. I'm just going to copy this dot trigger, and it will trigger the next dot oil, and else it will trigger the previous one. So prev dot oil, let's save. Sorry, okay, I think we should be fine. Let's put the beautify here, and after that we need to prevent the default functions. So prevent default, we are fine to go, and it should work, and now it is working just fine. So this is how we can use the external library, or although there are lots of internal plugins here or integrated plugins, so you can also use that. And if you want to know more about the Owl Carousel, you can go through the options in here. There are lots of options available, and if you want to directly copy and paste, you can also go to the demo and go anywhere. You can see the practical demonstration and also the code. So I think this is everything about the Owl Carousel. And if you didn't know about the Owl Carousel before, now you can directly implement the Owl Carousel into your web project. It is very helpful for the site based on the Bootstrap before, like Bootstrap 3, 4, because they got the jQuery dependency. So we don't need to add any other dependency, because the Bootstrap already got the dependency of jQuery, but from Bootstrap 5 the jQuery dependency is gone. If you go to the GitHub, you can see that in the readme file that this is pretty much dead. So do yourself a favor and switch to tiny slider. This is a very good slider here, the tiny slider. It is totally vanilla JavaScript, so there is no dependency like jQuery. And I already use this tiny slider in few of my projects, so I will create a tutorial video on that, and I will also add the link in the description below. If we create this, there is also lots of options and everything, but for the Owl Carousel, I think this is everything you need to know to get started with the Owl Carousel. And thank you very much for watching. See you in the next video. Take care and goodbye, and please don't forget to subscribe.